Mitsubishi, a name that remains synonymous with the World Rally Championship. In the late 1990s, the combination of the Lancer Evo and Tommi Mäkinen was an unstoppable force, taking 5 championships between them in just 4 years. However, this period of success was just a part of Mitsubishi's rallying campaign. It seemed that once the millennium turned, Mitsubishi lost their touch. Within just half a decade of the brand taking its 4th consecutive Drivers' Championship title, they had officially withdrawn amid a sea of disappointing results and unmet expectations. What exactly caused Mitsubishi's unprecedented downfall? It all starts, surprisingly, in 1997, when Mitsubishi was at the top of their game. That year would see the WRC switch from the Group A rule set, which it had operated under for the previous decade, to the new World Rally Car rules. There were some significant differences, including more relaxed rules for both homologation and car modifications. Every manufacturer switched to World Rally Car for the start of the 1997 season, apart from Mitsubishi. They were confident in their Lancer Evo and were enjoying a period of unprecedented success with Tommi Mäkinen. Instead of switching, they made a deal with the FIA to continue racing under Group A, under the condition that they would eventually switch to the new rule set. And so Mitsubishi would continue to race under Group A in 1997, and 1998, and 1999, and 2000. It may seem silly to an outsider, but bear in mind that throughout these years Mitsubishi were crushing it. While they were racing under an old rule set, Mitsubishi were easily able to battle the likes of Subaru and Ford with their new spec World Rally Car machines, thanks to their mastery of the Group A rules. On the flip side, however, this whole time, all the other manufacturers were developing their car year by year to the World Rally Car specifications, while Mitsubishi was sat in their own corner still playing at Group A. World Rally Car was still new and therefore not fully explored and used by the designers. As the years progressed, however, the cars would become more technically superior. In the end, Mitsubishi's choice to go for short-term success over long-term gains would be their downfall. By the end of 2000 though, the FIA had had enough, and Mitsubishi were ordered to finally switch over to World Rally Car during the 2001 season. Mitsubishi now had very little time to develop a new car for a rule set they had never tackled. This was going to be painful. Mitsubishi would continue to race the Group A Lancer in the first half of 2001, while they worked on the new Lancer WRC. Despite being quite outdated by this point and in its final stages of use, it remained competitive in the hands of Tommi Mäkinen, who would take 3 wins throughout the year, at Monte Carlo, Portugal and at the Safari. In fact, by the conclusion of Rally New Zealand, the last factory outing for the Group A Lancer Evo, Mäkinen was sat tied at the top of the leaderboard with Colin McRae. However, a rather lacklustre 8th at that event will be the final send-off for the works Group A Lancer Evo, after 8 years in competition and 5 titles to its name. At the following round in San Remo, Mitsubishi would rock up with the result of their rushed development cycle, the brand new Lancer Evo WRC. The Lancer name was actually a little bit misleading, as unlike the Evos before, it was not based on the road-going Lancer, instead the new generation of the Sedia. The new Evo 7 was also based on the larger Sedia, but as the World Rally Car rules did not stipulate homologation requirements unlike Group A, the new Evo WRC would have much less in common with the road-going version, though very obviously maintaining the same silhouette. One thing that did remain constant from previous Evos was the engine. Mitsubishi once again opted to use their tried and tested 4G63, in this guise producing the competition standard 300 horsepower. It was also fitted with a new turbo, new exhaust system, modified weight balance and McPherson struts for further suspension travel. Despite all the changes and upgrades, the Lancer Evo WRC was still rather undercooked. Additionally, it was very much tailored to Mäkinen, like the preceding Evos. As the team's lead driver and most successful one, the cars were built around him, favouring his unique driving style which was rather aggressive. While this was just fine in the Group A days when Mäkinen was at the height of his game, by 2001 Mäkinen was having a harder time of it, and the new Lancer Evo WRC was a far cry from the Evos before. It also meant that other drivers like Freddie Loix had a hard time adapting. The result was rather disastrous. Mäkinen would score a mere point in the rest of the season, taking 6th in Australia while retiring in the other 3 rounds, and ultimately being beaten by McRae, though both drivers were bunny-hopped by Subaru's Richard Burns for top honours. However, the new Evo WRC had only raced in 4 rounds. A few teething troubles here and there could easily be fixed, but it was undoubtable that this was a misstep for the new era of Mitsubishi. 2002 would deal the second big hammer blow to Mitsubishi's efforts. Tommi Mäkinen, Mitsubishi's lead driver since 1996 and part of the team since 1994, was approaching the twilight years of his career, and in 2000 had slumped to 5th in the standings. 2001 ended up being a little bit better for him, where he achieved 3rd, but the fact that he was in another title push when the new Lancer WRC had dashed his chances in just a few rounds, well, it had certainly rubbed him the wrong way. He ultimately decided to jump ship to Mitsubishi's longtime rival Subaru for 2002, as that team was arguably better funded and far more competitive. This exit left a gaping hole in the Mitsubishi team, especially considering that their car was now built around a driver that no longer drove it. Francois Delacour and Alistair McRae would head up Mitsubishi for 2002, though right out of the gate they struggled with the new Lancer like those before. From the start it was clear that 2002 was just going to be a continuation of 2001. While there were some successes, such as a 5th place for McRae in Sweden and junior gravel driver Jani Passonen holding 4th until a wheel breakage, overall the Mitsubishi team was consistently falling outside of points finishes. However, behind the scenes the team had been working on an upgrade, and at Rally Finland that year, the Lancer Evo WRC2, or Step 2, would make its debut. It featured a number of improvements, including a new intercooler, exhaust manifold, turbocharger and crankshaft, as well as a better centre of gravity. In addition, the transmission and drivetrain, which was the source of the Mäkinen tapered design, was modified to better fit the new drivers. None of this helped. Sure, there were another few points finishes here and there, but there were also an abundance of retirements, culminating in a pretty pathetic finale in Great Britain, in which all 3 drivers would be forced to retire. The whole season yielded Mitsubishi just 9 manufacturers' points, and the 2 points McRae scored early in the season in Sweden would be the final tally for the team's driver points. Mitsubishi would place last in the standings, tied on points with Skoda, not a team associated with top-level rallying success, though through countback embarrassingly Mitsubishi placed lower than Skoda on the table. After just 3 years since winning their 5th World Championship, Mitsubishi was at the bottom. What you'd assume to be another terrible season in 2003 did not materialise. After their shocking 2002 performance, Mitsubishi decided to pull out of the 2003 season to regroup and redesign everything, the first year without Mitsubishi since 1986. The team was completely shaken up. Andrew Cowan, who led the team to its successes in the 90s, was kicked out as team manager in favour of Sven Quandt, and numerous engineers were brought over from Peugeot. The driver lineup was also changed. Out were McRae and Delacour, replaced by Gilles Panizzi as the team's only full-time driver, with Gigi Gali, Christian Solberg and Danny Sola being brought in to cover selected events, and all would be instrumental in testing. The car, however, would be where the real changes took place. Following testing throughout the 2003 season with the old Lancer Evo WRC, in which Alistair McRae would snag a surprise 6th place at New Zealand, it was eventually decided that the new rally machine would shed the Evo name entirely. Additionally, it would be further removed mechanically from said car as well, essentially being a brand new car, top to bottom. Yes, it still featured the 4G63 after all these years, but it would be coupled to a new transmission, a new permanent 4-wheel drive system, as well as active yaw control and active differentials. But the biggest changes were on the body. While the previous Lancer WRC at least looked like an Evo, well, the new one was not going to be that. As well as a completely modified front end and wider wheel arches, the new Lancer WRC, now known as the WRC-04, would infamously feature a unique looking rear wing. The higher-ups at Mitsubishi originally wanted the wing to be fitted to the boot lid like on a road-going Evo, but unlike most stories of this vein, the engineers were the ones who won out. Instead, the wing would be placed just behind the C-pillar, as it supposedly improved front-end downforce more than if it was placed at the boot lid. Hey, a lot of people hate it, honestly, me included to a certain extent, but what's the point of motorsports without a little innovation here and there? With a refreshed lineup of drivers and a brand new car at the ready, Mitsubishi was primed to return to form in the 2004 season. Right out of the gate, it looked like 2004 will be the beginning of Mitsubishi's return to form, when tarmac specialist and new lead driver Panizzi took 6th place at the opening round in Monte Carlo. However, despite also scoring a stage win, this small success turned out to be a rare occurrence. Panizzi would go on to score a smattering of points in the following rounds, but nothing impressive. The other drivers were not able to post much success either, and Mitsubishi's season would see more retirements than finishes, and while a lot of them were down to driver error, the car was not absolved of blame either, with gearbox and electrical faults plaguing the campaign regularly. It was so bad in fact that following round 10 in Germany, in which both points eligible cars retired, again, Mitsubishi announced that they were pulling out of the remainder of the 2004 season to reassess their approach and would return for the 2005 season. Now, this is essentially what they did during the 2003 season, and that, rather obviously, did not really work. However, Mitsubishi now had the groundwork set up and didn't have to build a new car from scratch, and simply set about modifying and changing out parts of the car in the hopes of some improvements. They would make their return at the penultimate round in Spain, though only under the guise of testing, despite their efforts not contributing to the points total, though this didn't really matter as they were far out of the race by now. All three Mitsubishis would finish, with Solar and Gali taking 6th and 7th places respectively, surprisingly leaving the usually tarmac-confident Panizzi in a lowly 12th. Even so, the mere fact that all cars were able to finish, something that hadn't happened in the entirety of the 2004 season up to this point, showed a marked improvement, and the potential points were maybe a premonition of better things to come. And so Mitsubishi would make their third big new entrance of the 2000s with the Lancer WRC-05. There were few major changes, mainly a body widened by 30mm, updated aerodynamics, longer suspension links and driveshaft, and the addition of an ECU. But these small changes meant the new car was improved just enough to potentially allow for some significantly better results over the old car. With the addition of full-time driver Harry Rovanperä, Mitsubishi had some real championship hopes this year, and they were well-founded hopes. Again, Monte Carlo would show early season promise, with Panizzi this time scoring an impressive third, Mitsubishi's first podium since their win at the Safari Rally in 2001. This improved form would be a theme throughout 2005. Mitsubishi would regularly see the finish line, Rovanperä being the star of the show, finishing 9 of the 16 rounds. Sure, that might sound pretty terrible in a vacuum, but when context is added, that's actually quite impressive. Rovanperä would put the cherry on top of the cake at the final round in Australia, in which the Finn would wrangle 2nd place, and he would place 7th in the drivers' standings overall. Despite this impressive improvement, with Mitsubishi not being at the bottom of the table for the first time since 2001, Rovanperä's podium in Australia would be Mitsubishi's last. In fact, Australia would also be their last race as a factory team. In December of 2005, Mitsubishi suddenly announced that they were withdrawing from the WRC as part of a massive company-wide consolidation. Mitsubishi was in a tough financial spot at the time, and while their WRC campaign was slowly gaining a foothold and had finally started posting good results once again, the company executives decided that the budget had room for only one rally campaign. Mitsubishi was on an all-time run with their Pajero at the Dakar Rally at the time, having won every outing since 2001. it was decided that the Dakar would become the main focus, a choice that did end up bearing some fruit to be fair, as Mitsubishi would claim another 2 consecutive victories in 2006 and 2007, and to this day Mitsubishi's run in the Dakar in the 2000s has remained unchallenged. But what did that mean for Mitsubishi in the WRC? Well, Rally Art UK would take over those duties, though only supporting partial works entries. Essentially, anyone driving a Mitsubishi was able to accrue points for the Drivers' Championship, but their points would have no bearing in the Manufacturers' Championship. While nowhere near the respective highs of 2005, there were a few points here and there, though as the car remained largely unchanged, this was unsurprising. Rally Art would upgrade the car a little more following 2006 however, including an updated transmission and suspension, this version being colloquially referred to as the Lancer WRC 07. While again not much success was seen, the 2 cars that were run still had brief moments of glory, with drivers like Tony Gardemeister able to score points here and there, which was impressive in a car that was almost entirely 2 years out of date. However, that would really be the end. By 2008 the car was wholly uncompetitive, and Rally Art saw no reason to continue running any cars, and sadly 2008 would see an entry list missing Mitsubishi. It's a shame really, because while it's easy to look at Mitsubishi's campaign after 2001 as nothing but a waste of time, there was a real effort put in by the drivers and engineers to bring the 3-pointed star back to their 90s glory. It would even begin to bear fruit in its final years, before Mitsubishi would ultimately cut their losses and the factory operation was shut down. Would they have won another world title? Yeah, it's unlikely, especially with the unchallengeable combination of Citroën and Sebastian Loeb guarding the top spot. But would they have won any more events? Well, you can't know for sure, but considering that the team was sat at the bottom of the table in 2002, yet had risen back to challenge for podiums by 2005, would indicate that the answer to that question is yes. It's also easy to think that the modern day Mitsubishi, a far cry from its former self and purveyors of magnificent creations such as the Eclipse Cross, would hugely benefit from a return to the top level of the WRC. And sure, Mitsubishi once again showing up to challenge the might of Toyota and Hyundai would be incredible, and quite possibly the greatest marketing tactic they could pull at this point. It's never going to happen. Mitsubishi may have revived the Rally Art brand, but a full works WRC team is now more expensive than ever, an expense Mitsubishi simply cannot afford at the moment. Mitsubishi's attempts to claw their way back to glory in the 2000s, therefore, will likely remain the finale of their extensive and successful WRC campaign. I would love to be proven wrong, and who knows, if Mitsubishi's partnership with Nissan and Honda goes well, and the WRC's rule changes over the coming years reduces costs, maybe we'll see the 3-pointed star out on the dirt once again.